I'm a guy who says, if the words don't fit my mouth, we've got to change the words. He is one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. His characters were flying to a galaxy far, far away. We're cruising for a bruising, and we're discovering the meaning of human existence. He was considered a worthless actor and got his lucky ticket thanks to a bad character and the ability to see straight. Harrison Ford is a man of contradictions, an actor whose roles have become a true legend in the movie industry. It seems that he is not at all interested in his own fame, nor in cinema in general. Why did he not like the role of Deckard in Blade Runner? How was he bullied in school? And how did Ford almost die because of his infatuation? Welcome to the Biographer channel. Get comfortable, and let's get started. Harrison Ford was born on July 13, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. The future star's father, Christopher Ford, was an advertising executive, and his mother, Dorothy Nadelman, was a radio actress. After the birth of her son, Dorothy took on the role of a housewife and was engaged in raising children. 3 years later, Harrison's younger brother, Terrence, was born. The actor was named in honor of his maternal grandfather, Harry Nadelman, a Jewish migrant who moved from Minsk to the States in 1906. On his father's side, Ford had Irish roots. The actor spoke humorously about his ethnic family. As a man, I've always felt Irish. As an actor, I've always felt Jewish. In an interview, he admitted that, like his father, Harrison enjoys a good joke, a glass of decent whiskey, and recognizes quality clothing. I also have devils in me that won't let me sit still, he added. Harrison spent his childhood in the Chicago suburbs in the town of Des Plaines. In school, the future star was not particularly successful. He didn't spend time reading books, but he didn't run to hang out with friends either. I rarely spent time at the cinema and have not become a connoisseur of Bogart's acting, so the movie references that people like Spielberg and Lucas use mean nothing to me. Harry grew up a modest and shy boy who did not fit well into the school community. After Ford Sr. got a job in an advertising agency, he moved the family to Morton Grove, where the boy could study at a higher-level school, but more misadventures awaited him there. He had few friends and many problems, especially with the local hooligans. They did not so much beat the future star as competed in how best to humiliate him psychologically. Ford was dragged up the hill and thrown down. The important thing is that I suffer mentally, not physically, he recalled. This influenced the actor's attitude toward people. He always tried to stay away from them, and continues to do so today. I was literally one of the smallest in my class until I graduated from high school, and I preferred defensive tactics to offensive ones. As long as I swallowed their jokes, they didn't hit me as often as they could have. Ford found joy in the scouting movement, where he showed success and even reached a high rank. Life. It was to this period of the actor's life that there was a reference in the script of the movie Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where a young Indy was made a scout. In high school, the future actor enjoyed building model trains, and when the school radio was launched, he became its technician. Harry did not even think about acting. In many ways, he was influenced by his father's experiences. Before working in an advertising agency, Ford Sr. tried his hand at vaudeville, then as a radio DJ. But all of this brought little money and much hardship to the entire family. My father dressed well, went to work, and then complained at dinner about the bastard bosses, Ford recalled. As a result, Harrison decided at an early age that he would never be an actor and that coal mining was more appealing. Such a person will not complain at dinner that it is impossible to negotiate with coal, he explained. As a teenager, the young man began to work part-time in various places. One of his first jobs was as a cook on a yacht. The future actor found a collection of recipes and used them to study cooking. He would later tell the story of cooking during a storm while battling seasickness. It was probably the most heroic thing I ever did, he recalled. After that, Harrison worked in a tobacco store where he became addicted to smoking. After high school, Ford, under the influence of parents, had to enroll at Ripon College of Wisconsin, which was known for its loyalty to its students. My family wanted me to get a college education, so I had to try, Harrison explained. He was also motivated by his responsibility to his parents, whose father paid $2,000 a year in tuition and expected his son to do well. Philosophy was my major in college, but I can't say that I was very successful. I took a drama class to increase my chances of graduating from college, not realizing that I would have to not only read books, but also perform on stage. He had to overcome his fear of public speaking, and Harrison quietly got involved. And in June 1964, he made his debut on the Wisconsin Theater stage in one of the student performances. He got the lead role in The Three Penny Opera. According to Ford, he was fascinated by acting. I just matured late, but I finally found myself. When I first went on stage, I wasn't shy. I was fucking terrified. My knees would shake so badly you could see it from the back of the theater. The actor recalled his experience. A few days before his graduation, the unfortunate student was expelled. There are several theories. One was that Harry systematically overslept his classes. Another was that he was addicted to alcohol. The third was that he was so in love with the local theater that he forgot everything else. The actor himself remembered his success. I slept for 4 or 5 days at a time. There was one class I never attended. I slept for 7 days, then got out of bed, got dressed, went to the classroom but could not turn the doorknob. Everything around was frozen. In short, I gave up and went back to bed. Left without a degree, Harry went to Los Angeles in search of happiness. He made 2 important decisions for himself: to marry his college girlfriend, Mary Louise Marquardt, and to pursue an acting career with a focus on comedy. It was important for me to tell my relatives about my plans for the future, even though it made them terribly angry, Harrison said. But the second plan was not so easy to realize. Attempts to find work as an actor ended in failure. He was criticized for either the appearance or the name of the future star. He had to take any job in order to earn a living and take acting lessons. Therefore, under Harry's belt was the experience of a pizza delivery boy, a carpenter, and a bartender. By chance, the actor was able to get a place in the Williams Bay Repertory Company, which not only secured him a place in the professional theater, but also allowed him to learn from one of the best teachers of acting, William Fusick. Fusick had Paul Newman as a student and was considered one of the best teachers. Under his guidance, Ford made his professional stage debut in the play Take Her, She's Mine, and continued to gain experience in various productions. He didn't always memorize his lines perfectly, but he always delivered them with charm and a trademark smile. Immediately after his debut, he and Mary decided to make their relationship official. The young couple spent their honeymoon behind the theater stage. Fusick did something else for the actor. He helped him find a place to live in California, although the actor himself explained his choice of residence as follows. I went to Los Angeles. I didn't know anybody in the studios. I didn't know any of the actors. I was an outsider in Los Angeles, and still am. But this is the city you have to go to if you want to be an actor. There's no other choice. Harrison loaded Mary and their belongings into the Volkswagen and set course for Los Angeles. There, he was forced to change jobs several times until he managed to get into the New Talents program, and luck finally smiled on the young man. A new talent scout noticed him at a performance of John Brown's Body and invited him to audition. As a result, the actor signed a 7-year contract with Columbia Pictures, where he was promised cameo roles and a salary of $150 a week. It was during this period of his life that Ford received his recognizable scar on his chin. He was driving down Laguna Canyon one day on his way home from work at the store and crashed into a telegraph pole. But he didn't wear a seatbelt and split his chin. The local doctor didn't try too hard and stitched it up, so the scar is still visible today. The work in the studio was difficult. According to the artist, the internal politics of film studios have not evolved since the 20s. You had to come in a suit and tie, attend classes, have lunch with management, be photographed for glossy magazines. They kept trying to improve Harrison. Did his hair like Presley, changed his name to something more sonorous. I suggested Kurt Affair, Ford recalled. After that, talk of changing the name stopped. But the actor's suggestion was purely rhetorical. I would not go by that name. No way. I was just mocking them in response to their mockery, he explained. It sucked. Worse than the factory. Nobody in the studio knew your name. Nobody cared about you. I didn't learn anything. The long-awaited debut of the artist was the role of a messenger in one of the scenes of the crime drama Dead Heat on a merry-go-round in 1966. He received both his first fee of $150 and his first sentence. The episode with the actor so angered the head of the studio, Jerry Tchaikovsky, that he called Garrison on his carpet. Tchaikovsky said that he did not see a star in the actor and advised him to return to class and study. "You're not going to get a job here," he concluded. "I thought I was supposed to play a bellhop," Ford laughed, recalling the incident. "Turns out I was supposed to play a movie star." Unfortunately, the debut did not bring success, only a series of episodic roles and failed projects. Gunsmoke, The Virginian, The FBI, Ironside, in which Ford was only noticeable if you looked hard enough, came one after another. His next roles were as the irate driver in the Clive Donner comedy Love and as Lieutenant Schaefer in the Phil Carlson western A Time for Killing. In Love, the actor's involvement was so episodic that it consisted of saying hello and punching Jack Lemmon in the face.
Hi.
The studio's hopes for Ford did not come true. No one saw a future star in the actor, and after reporting that he did not have the talent, Columbia terminated his contract. But the actor did not have to go long. A few months later, he signed a contract with Universal Pictures, which gave him the opportunity to prove himself in a similar program to develop young talent. However, the opportunity was small, and Harrison got modest roles in episodes and various low-budget television projects. They didn't have the guts to approve me for a movie role, Ford recalled. In 1968, the actor played in William Hale's war drama Journey to Shiloh, and 2 years later still got the opportunity to realize himself in the drama Zabriskie Point by popular Italian director Michelangelo Antonioni. But the joy was short-lived. The final cut of all scenes with the actor were cut because the leadership of the film refused Ford's acting. Another attempt in Getting Straight was also unsuccessful.
Oh, Harry, Jan, wait. Hey, you weren't going to walk by, were you? I was waiting for you. We were having a party.
I was given tiny spaces to fill, nothing solid, Ford said about those days. As a result, he was also fired from Universal Studios in 1969. This was a blow to the actor, and he left attempts to build an acting career. Another reason was family. By this time, Harrison and Mary had 2 sons, Willard and Ben, who needed to be fed and clothed. And so the actor decided to make a living as a carpenter and to learn the profession independently. His first job was a recording studio for Sergio Mendes. Fortunately, there was a library near his house, and I stood on the roof of his house with a textbook in my hands, the actor recalled. The main thing, Ford said, was the ability to saw in a straight line. There were not enough carpenters in Hollywood. Ford quickly mastered the art, and so well that his services became popular among stars and wealthy people. Ford's business prospered, and soon he even hired people. Carpentry gave him the opportunity to feed his family and be selective about roles, expecting something better. I was frustrated but never felt defeated by my frustration, he said. For 8 years, starting in the late 1960s, I made cabinets, furniture, rebuilt houses. It was great. I saw the result of the work with my own eyes. Anyway, I decided no more roles until something substantial came along. Despite the fact that I spent 15 years in the movie business, I started earning money when I became a carpenter. For example, he built a stage for a Jim Morrison concert, a home tanning bed for Sally Kellerman, and assembled furniture in the home of producer Fred Roos. There was a legend that it was this acquaintance that influenced the actor's future. Roos liked Harrison so much that he promised him an audition for George Lucas's new movie American Graffiti. After the audition, the actor was cast in a supporting role as street racer Bob Falfa. His on-screen image in a white shirt and cowboy hat became one of the most recognizable in the 70s movie world.
Come on, boy, let's go. Prove it. Why don't you go out and try to win yourself a few races? Man, you come on back and I'll show you a few things.
But that was not the only legend about how Ford and Lucas met and began their productive collaboration. Rumor had it that the beginning of the acquaintance was the work of the actor on the order of the director himself. Ford made a natural wood cabinet for George. Lucas at that time did not have huge budgets and preferred to hire little-known actors. He involved acquaintances to write the script, literally assembled the movie from scratch. And Harrison turned out to be very handy with this, although not very great experience. The confidence in his independence from the circumstances helped the actor. When I came to the audition, I didn't look like someone who needed money for a piece of bread. For once, I had some decent experience behind me. An unemployed actor at an audition is an empty vessel. I changed a lot. I got my pride back. There were also more prosaic versions. According to one, Lucas was captivated by Ford's charisma and talent on the set of The French Connection, where the actor made the scenery for the filming. Whatever the truth, this encounter was fateful for Ford. American Graffiti was a huge success. The teen comedy about the summer adventures of high school seniors is considered a pioneer of the genre. The genre has unfortunately become so trivialized over the years that it is hard to feel Lucas's freshness and innovation now, but in its day it was literally a cult classic for American youth. One critic wrote, "The film became one of the most profitable Hollywood projects of the late 20th century, earning about $200 million on a budget of $775,000. Its success was ensured by several Golden Globe nominations. American Graffiti won 2. as well as 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director. Harrison was flooded with offers after working on the project, but not very good ones. In 1974, he played a small role in Coppola's detective film The Conversation. This role was written especially for Ford after he did not get another one, which went to Frederick Forrest. When the actor received a copy of the script, the image of his character was simply described as the young man.
I guess I can just wait on this.
But the actor even tried to make the occasional character unusual, freaky. It's not a character at all, Harrison recalled. So he asked the customer to spend $900 on a Brioni suit in billiard cloth color that was supposed to emphasize Ford's vision. I read the script and thought, how can I make it useful for this story? And so the day before we started shooting, I came to the set in costume, and Francis asked me, "What are you portraying?" I said, "I'm gay, look at how he acts, what he does." Then he yelled to our production designer, Dean Tavalaris, "Dean, he's gay!" And Dean replied, "What, this one too?" A year later, he had a small role in Judgment, the court martial, of Lieutenant William Calley, and the same lead role in the Western Dynasty. In 1977, the actor had a lot of work waiting for him, as many as 3 projects. One of them was the leading role in Jeremy Paul Kagan's drama Heroes. The actor played a former soldier with post-traumatic disorder.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
3 rabbits?
Hey, man, what's the matter with you?
Despite the fact that a box office was decently paid off and the film earned $33 million with a budget of $3 million, critics and viewers did not appreciate the picture. It had mostly unfavorable reviews, and now it has on the average a 3.5 out of 10 on Metacritic. The television horror film, The Possessed, was also not well received. Bill Mandel of the San Francisco Examiner panned the film, referring to the script as nearly incomprehensible. The evil most evident in this turkey was in the producers' minds. Steve Barton of Dread Central rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars and called it a token TV movie Exorcist knockoff that is, quote, actually ridiculously entertaining. But eventually, luck smiled on Harrison and he got a project that changed his career and laid the foundation for his current popularity. I am very, very lucky. Incredibly lucky. There are a lot of people who are smarter, more talented, and more beautiful than me, but they are less lucky. And this project was. George Lucas clearly saw more in Harrison than the studio heads. Soon after their collaboration, he invited the actor to participate in another more ambitious project. After passing the audition on a regular basis, Ford got the role of space pilot and smuggler Han Solo. The competition was serious. Burt Reynolds, Al Pacino, Jack Nicholson, and Christopher Walken claimed this role. It is a nice list, huh? Who do you think would play Solo if Lucas didn't like Ford? Share your guesses with us in the comments. Here he was transformed into a black man. But in the end, the director was inspired by Francis Ford Coppola, who formed the basis of the famous hero. There was a version that the director did not initially plan to take Harrison for the role of Solo. He was just supposed to help Lucas read lines during the casting of actresses for the role of Leia. So, for 2 months they auditioned 30 to 40 people a day, and Harrison got so annoyed with his lines that he started spitting out words and became rude. It was at that moment the director saw him as a space smuggler who was very different from the original prescribed image in the script. I'm just lucky. I'm lucky. And you know what? I've always considered myself lucky even when I wasn't working with Lucas and Spielberg. Even when I was working as a carpenter, I was happy. In my family life. In my personal life. In the environment of total economy, the developers of the movie had to experiment, so it isn't just sounds that the movie borrowed from nature. For example, the name of the planet Tatooine comes from a real place, a town in Tunisia. The filming almost ended in an international scandal because the authorities in neighboring Libya were worried about the amount of equipment and wanted to announce a general mobilization.
Look, good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living, that's something else.
The languages spoken by the different races were also borrowed, but with some modifications. For example, Ewoks speak Tagalog, which is common in the Philippines. The Jawas have the Zulu language sped up on a computer. The Rhodian race speaks the language of the Indians in Peru played backwards. Jabba the Hutt speech is borrowed from a Vietnamese dialect. The first film in the franchise was released in 1977 and immediately became a cult classic and won 7 Oscar statuettes. Harrison, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher became international stars. The film was a huge success and earned $300 million. Not surprisingly, the film had a sequel. In 1980, the 5th episode, The Empire Strikes Back, and in 1983, the 6th episode, Return of the Jedi, were released. The demand for the saga was so great that it created its own fan culture. Star Wars brought Ford not only fame, but also a decent fee. According to the information found, the actor received only $10,000 for the first film. But the following parts have already significantly increased his income. For The Empire Strikes Back, he got $100,000. For Return of the Jedi, he got $500,000. And for Star Wars The Force Awakens, he got $20 million. In addition, the actor receives 0.5% of the income from the 7th part of the saga. Lucas was open to his actors, always listened to their opinions, and if it was necessary, could change the script. Thus, in the dialogues of Han Solo, Harrison had the freedom of will, especially as the actor had a good argument. "You can type that kind of shit, George, but you can't pronounce it," he once told the director. The scene with Leia's confession of love to Han Solo was one such change. Originally, the hero was supposed to respond, "Remember this, Leia, since I will return." However, Ford was not sure about his participation in the new parts, and also felt that such a reaction did not fit his character. So he said,
I know.
And this scene with a non-standard answer has become a cult. As Ford later admitted, he did not like the role of Solo, not only for lines. He told Entertainment Weekly, "He's got a good heart, but I think he's dumb as a stump. The breadth of his story utility was never extensive. It was the foil between the other more compelling elements of the film, between the sage old warrior and the young hero. There's not much breadth of character to explore beyond what we got out of him." He was so fed up with the character that the actor asked Lucas to kill Solo in the final episode, believing it would give the story a sense of closure. But the director refused, fearing that killing Solo would hurt sales of the character's figurines. Years later, Carrie Fisher, who played Leia, would publish a novel in which she admitted that she and Ford had loved not only on the screen. The tension between the characters was so strong that many fans suspected a relationship between them.
Come on.
You're imagining things.
Am I? Then why are you following me? Afraid I was gonna leave without giving you a goodbye kiss?
I just assumed it's a Wookiee.
I can arrange that. If you's a good kiss.
The actors laughed off the questions each time and never confirmed the relationship. In March 1976, Fisher appeared on the British talk show The Jonathan Ross Show and then denied the affair. The actress admitted that Harrison looked like a movie star. You don't fall in love with people like that. But things changed after a few months. After a birthday party for George Lucas, Harrison drove the tipsy girl home, and the next morning they woke up together. According to the actress, she fell madly in love with Ford. "I looked over at Harrison, a hero's face. A few strands of hair fell over his noble, slightly furrowed brow. How could you ask such a shining specimen of a man to be satisfied with the likes of me?" It was complicated for her. It was so intense, the actress admitted in an interview with People many years later. According to Fisher, she was worried about the age difference because then she was only 19 and Ford was already 33. Worried that her lover was married and raising 2 children, worried that she could not match such an attractive and mature man. Thus, the girl was even afraid that she was a bad kisser and it would alienate her lover. In her memoirs, the actress hinted that it was Harrison who was her first man, and she was crazy about him. "I was so inexperienced, but I trusted something about him," she wrote. "He was kind." Moreover, the girl hoped that Ford would propose to her. But it happened otherwise. Immediately after the filming of the first part, the couple broke up. The actor returned to his wife and children, and even after the divorce with Mary, the actor did not pay attention to the girl. Ford did not comment on the romance at first, but after a while he admitted to GQ magazine that he was surprised that Fisher wrote about it. Despite the enormous success of A Galaxy Far, Far Away, it did not immediately turn the tide of Harrison Ford's career. Between episodes 4 and 5 of Star Wars, the actor continued to star wherever he could, including supporting roles. In 1978, the drama Guy Hamilton Force 10 from Navarone was released, based on the book of the same name by Alistair MacLean. In the story of British commandos trying to stop the advance of Nazi troops, Ford got the role of Lieutenant Colonel Mike Barnsby.
There's no bridge in the world that can't be blown. That's what Force 10 was here to prove.
Production of the film began 17 years after the original date due to a lack of funding and the story bouncing between screenwriters. As a result, the script was so raw that the characters were left unfinished. I was lost because I didn't know what the story was about. I didn't have anything to act. There was no reason for my character being there. I had no part of the story that was important to tell. I had a hard time taking the stage with the bull that I was supposed to be doing. The movie was a commercial failure. Force 10 from Navarone received mixed reviews from both critics and audiences, as well as from Ford himself. It wasn't a bad movie, he would later say, but I did it wrong. The actor admitted that he chose the role for two reasons: because it was different from Han Solo and he wanted to make money. The next year was more productive. The actor appeared in 4 projects. He had another opportunity to work with Francis Coppola in the military drama Apocalypse Now. He got a cameo role of one of the colonels named Lucas. The film became a legend even at the time of the filming process due to all the difficulties that the director and the team had to face. But Ford's participation in the Oscar-winning film was a good shift in his career. In another war movie, Hanover Street by Peter Hyams, Harrison got the lead role along with Leslie Ann Down and Christopher Plummer. The role of Lieutenant David Halloran was supposed to be played by Chris Christopherson, but he dropped out of the film for personal reasons. So Ford was asked to replace Christopherson, and he agreed.
So damn easy to be brave when you haven't got anything to lose. I'm scared now. I don't want to die and not see you anymore. Nothing makes any sense until I'm with you, and then everything makes sense.
The actor later admitted that he accepted the role only because of his lack of experience in filming love scenes. I thought that the part would help me grow, but I hated making that film from start to finish, he recalled. Hanover Street was a failure, earning only $1.5 million. Critics were not thrilled with the picture either. Every now and then a film comes along of such painstaking, overripe foolishness that it breaks through the garbage barrier to become one of those rare movies you rush to see for laughs, was described by Vincent Canby, who was a major film critic for the New York Times until the early 90s. Harrison got another major role in the Robert Aldrich western The Frisco Kid, where he was to play a smart bank robber with a big heart named Tommy Lillard. As in the previous time, Ford's role was originally planned for another actor, John Wayne, but the studio did not have enough budget for him. Therefore, Harrison came to help, but he did not suit the director in all respects. Maybe that's why Aldrich always teased the actor and compared him to John Wayne.
Don't know. You don't know. Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get me a bath. Then I'm gonna get drunk. Then I'm gonna catch me a whore with great big tits. Then I'm gonna get drunk again. Then I'm gonna rob that Wells Fargo office and get my money back.
The film's producer, Mace Newfield, recalled, I think Harrison always felt when Aldrich was shooting a scene that Aldrich was looking at him and seeing the picture of John Wayne, and he gave him a pretty hard time on the film. Although Ford, and especially Wilder, received positive reviews from critics, the film was considered mediocre, and many considered it a mistake in the director's career. The film was criticized for its lack of plot development and ambiguous comedic tone. Soon, the actor returned to the screens in the sequel to the familiar story, More American Graffiti, which told the story of how the lives of the characters of the first part turned out later. This time, Bill L. Norton directed the comedy, but George Lucas wasn't far behind either, serving as executive director. It was said that when Universal Studios was ready to make a sequel, Lucas was not very keen on making it, but his friend Howard Kazanjian persuaded him. Lucas's instincts were right. The box office was inferior to the first movie, and it had mostly negative reviews from the critics. George Lucas himself called the movie so bad he could not understand how he made it. But Harrison Ford did not have time to be sad. After all, in the near future, he was waiting for another iconic role that would strengthen his status as a star. Harrison Ford was not going to be Indiana Jones. George Lucas, who acted as producer and screenwriter of the project, did not want to cast anyone from Star Wars in the new film. He even refused to cast Ford for fear that it would be seen as biased. And so he tried to sign Tom Selleck for the role, but he was not allowed by the contract and preparations for filming the series Magnum P.I. Finally, after an unsuccessful search and under very tight time constraints, the producer agreed to hire Harrison. So, in essence, Ford got two major roles in his life, thanks to his acquaintance with George Lucas, but against his will.
You don't know what they've got there.
Well, I know what I've got here.
Lucas and Steven Spielberg came up with the idea for the script while on vacation in Hawaii. It is said that they were inspired by a sandcastle they had built together. Suddenly, they decided to make an adventure movie based on the TV series from the 40s. They ended up working on the script with Lawrence Kasdan. The film was produced by Lucasfilm Ltd. In association with Paramount. That's why the film was made under unique conditions. The studio financed the entire $18 million budget, but in return, Lucas owned more than 40% of the film and received almost half the profits after the studio collected a certain amount. For their part, Lucas and Spielberg promised not to go over budget or drag out the movie, and so the original concept where the main character had adventures in Shanghai and then survived in Nepal had to be cut out. Otherwise, we would have seen a completely different story. By the way, the name Indiana came to the main character because of the Alaskan Malamute dog that had the same nickname. The dog's owner was Lucas, of course. The shooting was not easy for Ford, because most of the stunts of his brave hero he did on their own. He received injuries of varying severity many times, but often continued to work in spite of the damage. For example, in the episode where Jones ran away from a giant stone, the ball was real. It was made of fiberglass and weighed about 16 stone. In the episode with the snakes, one of the cobras sprayed poison into it. Fortunately, the snake and the actor were separated by glass. And in the scene where he was dragged by a rope behind a giant truck, the actor bruised his ribs badly. When he was asked if he was worried, Ford wryly remarked, "No, if it was really dangerous, they would have shot that scene last." The only relief was the fight scene where Indiana shot the saber-wielding Arab with a revolver. It was supposed to be a tough fight, but by then most of the crew was sick with dysentery. Ford was no exception, as he was weakened by the illness and unable to perform the difficult physical stunts. The only one who did not get sick was Spielberg. He only ate the canned spaghetti that he had brought with him. Despite the difficulties, Ford called the role his favorite of his career. Raiders of the Lost Ark was very successful, grossing $474 million at the box office and becoming the highest-grossing film of 1981. The film was nominated for 9 gold Oscars, including Best Picture, Director, Cinematography, and Original Score. However, the film only won Oscars in technical categories. The movie earned something else no less important: audience recognition. The image of Indiana Jones became iconic and got a sequel.
Did you have any idea that the first Raiders you're going to have sequels on that and do more and more of those?
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping.
In 1985, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was released, consolidating the success of the first part. During the filming, the actor injured his back. He was saved by good pre-production and good physical form, which helped him recover quickly. Dedication to work or love of risk spurred him to cross a real rope bridge at the end of the picture. 4 years later, Indiana Jones sought adventure in the third part, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, in which Ford was joined by Sean Connery. As in other movies, Harrison did his best by doing his own stunts. His stunt double, Vic Armstrong, recalled that the actor literally had to be dragged away to replace him. Armstrong later said, "If he wasn't such a great actor, he would have made a really great stuntman." They also had to improvise. For example, in the scene on the airship, the temperature was about 35 degrees, and Ford and Connery were exhausted from the heat. The exit was unusual. The actors took off their pants and shoes, and the episode was filmed almost from the first take. The movie was no less successful than the first part, and it earned $474 million. This was the final part of the trilogy, which was originally conceived by Spielberg and Lucas. It received 3 Oscar nominations, of which it won the statuette for Best Sound Effects. In 1991, Ford almost won the Saturn Award. Its were Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, Sean Connery, Jack Nicholson, Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Burt Reynolds. But thanks to Steven Spielberg, who was very pleased with the actor after working together on Indiana to him. Philip K. Dick, author of the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, said, "Harrison Ford is more like Rick Deckard than I could have even imagined. If he had not played that role, Deckard would have never become an actual person. Ford radiates this tremendous reality when you see him, and seeing him as a character I created is a stunning and almost supernatural experience to me." As described as a bitch. "I felt I was playing a detective who did no detecting," the actor said of his role. The production process was complicated by the conflict between Ridley Scott and everyone else. Some attribute it to the fact that the director is a complicated character. Some say it was Scott's meticulousness trying to make everything perfect and taking his time. In addition, Scott does not allow rehearsals before shooting the budget. In response, the director publicly stated that he preferred to work with the British because they didn't show as much character. In response, the crew wore t-shirts that read, "Will Rogers never met Ridley Scott," a reference to Rogers' quote, "I never met a man I didn't like." Exaggerated. The stories about Harrison and I not getting on, they were not absolutely true. I was very much in my own head about what I was doing, and it's very difficult, hour by hour, minute by minute, to explain why it's raining and why it's dark. And eventually I used to say, because that's what I want. Back the off. And that was it, because I got fed up of explaining myself. Then there was a quiet period in Harrison's career. Nope, projects came out, but not very high-profile ones. In 1985, the world saw Ford in the title role of Australian director Peter Weir's thriller Witness. The story follows Inspector John Book, who tries to save a young boy and his mother. After witnessing a murder, they take refuge in an Amish settlement where they try to find shelter.
How do I look? I mean, do I look, Amish?
You look plain.
Okay.
Money for the film 20th Century Fox Studio allocated only under the name of Harrison, as his agent Phil Gersh interested in the script. Moreover, the actor himself suggested Peter Weir, as the director specialized in shooting similar films. It was Ford's first major role outside the science fiction genre, and in order to prepare for it, the actor joined the Philadelphia Police Department, sometimes traveling with them on raids. During the work, Ford and Weir worked so well together that the actor signed on to participate in another director's project, The Mosquito Coast. Although the movie was not a huge success at the box office, it was well received by audiences and critics alike. The latter particularly praised the performance of Harrison Ford, who, according to Dave Kerr, showed himself for the first time to be more than just a gear in the Spielberg-Lucas machine. For his role, the actor was nominated for his first Oscar as Best Actor. The Mosquito Coast, released the following year, was less successful. Despite 2 Golden Globe nominations, including one for Best Actor for Harrison Ford, the film failed at the box office, and even the Star Wars star didn't help it pay off. After that, Ford disappeared for 2 years and appeared in 2 projects at once in leading roles. In Roman Polanski's detective movie Frantic, the actor played an American surgeon from San Francisco who tried to save his wife in a showdown between Arab, Israeli, and American agents.
Please, I must have that suitcase.
What did you bring back? What do they want?
Please, we must leave here. Quick. Quick, please.
After reviewing the picture at the end of shooting, Ford suggested to Polanski to change the title. He did not see the frenzy that was supposed to be in the movie, but the director was adamant. And again, there were good reviews from critics, but poor box office. The movie earned just over $17 million and did not pay off the budget. Mike Nicole's Working Girl was more successful in its implementation, and the actor was able to try himself in a comedy drama, which not only did it pay off, but it was also nominated for 6 Oscars. After the release of the second part of Indiana Jones and Ford's strengthened position on the Hollywood Olympus, the actor worked steadily, 1 role a year, until the late 90s. The most significant of these were several projects. In 1990, Scott Turo's drama Presumed Innocent was released, in which Harrison played the role of a district attorney who was not very faithful to his wife. He came under suspicion after the death of his mistress, played by Greta Scacchi.
What do I have to do?
Grow up.
After the release in cinemas, the picture was very popular, and as a result, it collected $221 million. The actors soon collaborated with Philip Noyce on the political thriller Patriot Games. The film was an adaptation of the Tom Clancy novel of the same name and a sequel to The Hunt for Red October. Rumor had it, or rather, Alec Baldwin said, that he did not star in the sequel because of Ford. This was because the studio preferred a more famous actor. According to Clancy, the plot had little in common with the original, and of the 200 scenes, only 1 matched the book. As a result, the author of the original refused to participate in the production. For the filming, the team was given unique access to the CIA compound at Langley. This was the first time in the history of film production. The shooting was memorable, and for another reason. During a fight scene with Sean Bean's character, Harrison Ford accidentally hit Sean in the face with a boat anchor. The actor was left with a scar over his left eye. The movie did very well at the box office, earning $178 million. The star was not offended either. Ford earned $9 million for his participation. The story of CIA officer Jack Ryan had a sequel, and 2 years later, Clear and Present Danger was released. Audiences embraced the movie even more, and it grossed $215 million. And the very next year, it was nominated for an Oscar in 2 categories, Best Sound Editing and Best Sound. The film was praised for its dynamism and spectacle, its unpredictable plot, and its unexpected denouement. The actor also deserved appreciation for his attempt to portray the confusion, reticence, and wariness of his character. In 1993, another thriller starring Harrison was released, The Fugitive by Andrew Davis. The script was based on the TV series of the same name, which was very popular in the 60s. Besides Harrison, other strong actors were considered for the leading role of Dr. Richard Kimball, Alec Baldwin, Nick Nolte, Kevin Costner, and Michael Douglas. Ford's partner in the shooting was Tommy Lee Jones, who throughout the story chased the character Ford and tried to prove his innocence in the murder of his wife.
6'1", 180, brown hair, brown eyes, beard. See anyone like that around?
Every time I look in the mirror, pal. Except for the beard, of course.
According to Ford in a 2023 interview for The Hollywood Reporter, he pursued the role of Richard Kimball due to his liking to play characters who aren't like him, in addition of his desire to grow a beard or a mustache for a role, which then Warner Bros. Chairman Robert A. Dolly often denied due to paying to see his face unchanged. The script for the picture was constantly rewritten, with changes made immediately before each scene, and Ford actively participated. According to the director, the official screenwriter David Twohy wasn't involved in anything they did. But Tommy Lee Jones, myself, Harrison Ford, and other people were close with us, especially coming up with the whole plot about the pharmaceuticals. They were uncredited writers, he admitted. The audience received the movie very well. It was the first major American film to be shown in the PRC 10 years after the ban on foreign films. In the end, it grossed $368 million at a cost of $44 million. Critics and audiences received it with great acclaim. Ford was also praised. For example, Desson Howe, writing in the Washington Post, said, "Ford makes the perfect writer for a project like this, with his hangdog handsome everyman presence. He's one of us, but one of us at his personal best. It's great fun to ride along with him." At this point, Harrison Ford was in a position where he could only accept the roles he liked. In 1997, the actor got the chance to work with another big star, Brad Pitt. The Devil's Own was the last project of director Alan Pakula, with whom Ford worked on Presumed Innocent. In a movie about the struggle of the IRA as portrayed by Pitt's hero and the ambiguity of choosing between personal relationships and duty, Ford got the role of policeman Tom O'Mara. Inadvertently involved in a smuggling ring, he tried to save his family and at the same time to track down and arrest the protagonist who had gone undercover as a gunrunner.
What are you doing?
I'm building site.
Construction. Good.
The budget for the movie was not small, $90 million. At such a cost, the movie barely paid off, earning $140 million. But Wolfgang Petersen's Air Force One was better. Here, Harrison shared the lead role with the charming Gary Oldman, and if Ford played the president of the USA, Oldman played the antagonist and leader of the terrorists, Igor Korshunov. But he's always good for the bad guys. He and Ford worked so well together that the actor called Oldman his favorite opponent on screen. The role of the president was originally written for Kevin Costner, but he turned it down and offered Harrison as a replacement. Before filming, the entire team had the opportunity to visit a real Air Force One plane, where they were given a tour. Initially, director Wolfgang Petersen was denied access to the real Air Force One. A phone call from a Star Wars star helped them get what they wanted. The movie was a huge box office success. Air Force One made $37 million in its first weekend and topped the box office, surpassing even Men in Black. It eventually grossed $315 million and became the most popular action film of the year. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone awarded the film 3.5 out of 4 stars, describing it as superior escapism, and concluding, Air Force One doesn't insult the audience. It is crafted by a filmmaker who takes pride in the thrills and sly fun he packs into every frame. Welcome to something rare in a summer of crass commercialism. A class act. Roger Ebert gave it a 2.5 out of 4 rating, noting that despite the cliches, the movie was well executed. Air Force One is a fairly competent recycling of familiar ingredients, given an additional interest because of Harrison Ford's personal appeal. The critic noted, "It was said that President Bill Clinton, who was in office at the time of the movie's release, liked and praised the film. However, he pointed out that the real plane had no ramp for parachutes or escape pods, unlike the plane in the movie." In December 2015, Donald Trump expressed his admiration. Quote, "Harrison Ford on a plane. He stood up for America." Trump was so inspired by Ford's performance in the movie that the actor had to remind him that it was just a fictional story. The film was nominated for 2 Oscar nominations and also won the ASCAP Top Box Office Films Award. And Harrison won the Bambi Award in the actor category. As the millennium approached, Ford decided to diversify his career with Robinson-Odd and drama. 6 Days, 7 Nights in 1998 declared itself. In Yvonne Reitman's adventure film, Ford got another lead role, a pilot who finds himself stranded on a deserted island after a plane crash. His companion was Anne Hetch, who played the role of journalist Robin Monroe.
I mean, can't we
Can't we reattach it somehow?
Oh, sure. We'll, like, glue it back on. How's that?
Aren't you one of those guys?
What guys?
Those guys, you know, those guys with skills.
Skills?
Yeah. You send them out into the wilderness with a pocket knife and a Q-tip and they build you a shopping mall. You can't do that?
At the time, Hetch was a promising young actress with a bright future. If it were not for one incident, the girl appeared in public with a lesbian Ellen DeGeneres, and so the movie company immediately fired the actress as she was no longer suitable for the role of the object of Whitman's dreams. Harrison used all his connections and opportunities to get Hetch back into the film, but the damaged career of the young actress was still very serious. By the way, the plane that Ford's character flew in the movie was exactly the same make as his own, a single-engine de Havilland Beaver. And so, the actor himself flew it on the set after passing an additional certification. Despite the controversial reviews, the movie paid its budget and even made a little money. But Sidney Pollack's Random Hearts failed at the box office, and it was very criticized by the audience. And even Ford in the title role did not protect it from condemnation for a boring plot and slow pace. In his personal life, things were not going so well. His marriage to Mary was falling apart. It was rumored that the woman was difficult to deal with the fame of a rising star, and if for a long time the actor was considered a bore, then gradually he came to a stormy personal life. Confirmation of this was an affair with Fisher. The couple divorced in 1979. Harrison and Mary remained on good terms, according to those closest to them, and the actor was always supportive of his first wife. He stood by my side in my darkest days, quietly asking nothing in return, Mark Ward once said. After his divorce from Mary, Ford was a bachelor for a short time. In 1983, fate brought him together with screenwriter Melissa Matheson. In this marriage, 2 more children of the actor were born, a son, Malcolm, and a daughter, Georgia. Harrison Ford has said more than once that his second wife shared his passions and lifestyle. 2 years after their wedding, they bought land in a quiet Wyoming town and built a house. But by the late 90s, the marriage also began to slowly disintegrate. Articles about the new romances of the famous actor periodically flashed in the press. Lauren Flynn Boyle, Wendy Crewson, actresses Robin Evans and Minnie Driver were among his ladies of the heart. And while Ford initially denied the rumors, he gave up after scandalous photos surfaced. An attempt to revive the marriage with a honeymoon in Hawaii didn't help either. The divorce cost the actor a lot. He gave his ex-wife $85 million and a mansion overlooking the ocean. People close to the couple said they parted as friends and that Melissa did not hold a grudge. Well, very soon Harrison will meet a new love, but for now, we suggest you take a break for a second and subscribe to our channel. Here you'll find a whole collection of biographies of great actors, and not only. Click on the subscribe button, click on the bell, and we'll continue. With the advent of the millennium, Harrison Ford's career has not worked. In 2000, Robert Zemeckis' mystical thriller What Lies Beneath was released with Ford in the title role as the unscrupulous schoolteacher Norman Spencer. His co-star was Michelle Pfeiffer, who played his wife. Both actors were the first and only candidates for the role in Zemeckis' movie. It was the first horror movie in the actor's career and his first negative character. He coped with it perfectly, although the main course of the plot still went for the heroine Michelle.
Claire, stop. You're overreacting.
Don't tell me how to react.
Will you keep your voice down?
I will not!
Of course, without the changes in the course of filming, it has not done. For example, according to the original script by Clark Gregg, the main characters did not have such an intimate relationship as in the movie. They also smoked something that we can't talk about, otherwise we might get blocked by YouTube. Despite the fact that there weren't not so many locations in the movie, the stated budget of the movie was $100 million. Of course, some of that went to visual effects and the advertising campaign, but it seems likely that the star's salary wasn't the least of it. The movie did well at the box office with a gross of $291 million. However, the reviews were not so positive. The movie was criticized for being overlong and unconvincing. The Los Angeles Times called it spooky with a polished kind of creepiness added in. What Lies Beneath nevertheless feels more planned than passionate, scary at points but unconvincing overall. Roger Ebert awarded the film 2 out of 4 stars. Writing for the Chicago Sun-Times, lacking a smarter screenplay, it milks the genuine skills of its actors and director for more than it deserves, and then runs off the rails in an ending more laughable than scary. Along the way, yes, there are some good moments. This was followed by absolute box office failures. The drama K-19, The Widowmaker in 2002, the action comedy Hollywood Homicide in 2003, the thriller Firewall in 2006, and the drama Crossing Over in 2009. In them, Harrison Ford was still the same Harrison Ford. Gloomy, laconic, with an ironic smile and always charming. Moreover, the actor played himself in the comedy Larry Charles Bruno, although he was not listed in the credits.
Mit Harrison Ford! Also, her mit Harrison Ford.
The actor was not too worried about this. God knows why something doesn't work. It doesn't usually make that much difference. I just go on and do something else. I wasn't counting the hits and misses. Moreover, in the frankly average movies, the actor was in good company. Thus, in the 2010 drama Extraordinary Measures, Ford shared the lead role with Brendan Fraser and Kerry Russell. Glasses and a white doctor's coat clearly suited him, but did not save the situation. The film received mostly negative reviews and failed at the box office. The consensus of the critics was that, despite a couple of top actors and the relevance of the subject matter, Extraordinary Measures is nothing more than for TV viewing. The comedy Morning Glory was slightly better received, where the actor got a minor role, a grumpy and written-off journalist. In the words of one critic, the imposingly aging Harrison Ford shows off the manners of a London dandy and squeamishly jokes, catching up a suicidal gloom on the morning air.
I'm Becky Fuller, and we actually met the other day in the elevator.
What the hell are you doing here?
I'm the producer of Daybreak, and we're actually looking for a new anchor.
Then why are you here?
There has been little change since Han Solo. In addition, a very strange... In 2011, director Jon Favreau's sci-fi western Cowboys and Aliens was released, telling the story of the struggle of cowboys and Indians against an alien invader. The action took place at the end of the 19th century, and Ford put on a cowboy hat to play Colonel Woodrow Dolarhyde. Harrison was accompanied by Daniel Craig in such a controversial film. According to the director, he invited Ford and Craig into the film because they were actors who were suited for roles in an action-adventure film, so that the characters would be seen as less comedic. The director attributed this unusual combination of genres to his desire to revive the Western genre, which had lost popularity during the Vietnam War. Westerns have been considered box office poison in recent years, Favreau claimed. But alien invasion movies have been very popular, so the hope is that fusing the two genres allows us to make something that has more of a commercial upside than a traditional Western, while also allowing us to embrace the traditional aspects of the Western. But his hopes did not come true. The film earned $175 million, barely breaking the budget. Because of its high cost, the film became a financial disappointment. In 2014, the Los Angeles Times called the film one of the most expensive box office failures of all time. A similar fate awaited Ender's Game, a science fiction film released a year later. Ford again got a tough role, Colonel Hiram Groff, head of the Combat Academy, where they trained future fighters with aliens. The film barely recouped the money spent to make it, and Variety included it in its list of Hollywood's biggest box office bombs of 2013. The reviews were mixed. Some found it an exciting and well-acted astro-adventure. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times, for example, praised the stunning and gorgeous visual effects that cover every inch of the screen, and described the movie as an exciting adventure that should satisfy most young fans of the book, as well as captivate adults. Others, on the contrary, criticized the picture for its superficiality and underdeveloped scenes. Brian Helgeland's drama 42 stands out among the space battles. Ford was unrecognizable as the aged coach of the baseball team.
A black man in white baseball. Can you imagine the reaction?
The story followed the hardships of the life and athletic career of Major League Baseball's first black player. His name was Jackie Robinson, and his life was the basis for this biographical film. Ford's character, named Branch Rickey, played a major role in overcoming racial animosity and breaking the racial barrier in baseball. The movie received a lot of praise. Undoubtedly, most of it was directed at the idea and plot of the movie. But there was also a lot of praise for Ford. The film's actors were generally praised, with Owen Gleiberman saying of Ford, "He gives an ingeniously stylized cartoon performance. His eyes a twinkle, his mouth a rubbery grin, his voice all wily southern music, though with that growl of Fordian anger just beneath it." 42 paid off twice, earning $97 million. The film earned $27.3 million in its first weekend, the best debut for a baseball-themed film. Two more of Ford's projects in 2013 were the failed Robert Luketic thriller Paranoia and a cameo in the comedy Anchorman 2: The Legend Continues. The movie was filmed with cameo roles. Harrison was joined by Nicole Kidman, Kanye West, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Meryl Streep. Describing his participation in the movie, the actor said that his part isn't vital to the film's plot, saying, "It's easy enough to cut out. It's not critical." Ford called shooting with so many stars weird.
This is a very demanding job.
Yes.
But I'm close to thinking that you may have what it takes.
Will Ferrell talked to Total Film about Harrison's involvement in the film. "It's stupid why he would want to do it," he said. Bless him. He worked a 16-hour-long day with him, and the whole day we just couldn't believe it was Harrison Ford. The sequel paid off and made good money, but according to Ford, he only got a little bit of money. In general, Ford is not very verbose in interviews. Ford generally has an imposing and intimidating manner, sometimes coming across as short or ill-tempered in interviews and during press junkets. Harrison Ford is more interesting and more entertaining when he's avoiding questions than most people are when they're answering them, writes Chris Heath. This is mainly due to the fact that the actor is sure that he has already said everything and he will not be able to tell you anything new. When you go back and you do your research and you see all this reams of shit that's been written, there really isn't anything left to say. Because I haven't just changed my mind last night, it's the same old shit. The actor does not ignore the journalist's questions. He's much smarter and much cannier than that. There are a select few stories about his past he has always told, like soldiers sent out from camp as sacrificial decoys to protect the rest of the army. Many of these stories are about his first steps in acting and his struggles with the windmills of film production, which he still has to struggle with today. In 2014, the actor got another small role in the third part of Sylvester Stallone's The Expendables. Harrison was offered a role in the legendary gathering of 80s and 90s action stars after Bruce Willis left the project, demanding too much money. Willis is out, Harrison Ford is in. Wonderful news. I've been waiting for this for so many years, Stallone wrote on his blog at the time.
So who are you?
Operations Officer Drummer. You don't have to worry about Church anymore. He's out of the picture.
The audience was pleased with the actor's participation. Harrison Ford fits in beautifully with his pompous but still bright performance. The actor's fans rejoiced. The feedback on the picture itself was much less positive. The average rating on aggregator sites was 4 out of 10, and some of the legendary actors were even nominated for a Golden Raspberry. Another small role awaited the actor in 2015, in Lee Talon Krieger's romantic fantasy, The Age of Adeline. Ford played the father of the main character, William Jones. The Guardian wrote of the actor that he showed his best game in recent years. Vox, in turn, described the actor's work as follows. Ford is equal parts goofy and graceful as William. He shifts from understated comedy into all-out heartbreak. But it is Harrison's role that was considered the magic wand that unified the entire story of the ageless and rebellious Adeline, a woman who could not find peace without love.
She's not capable
Of what?
of change.
The movie earned back the $25 million spent on its production and even made money, but it remained just another passing phase in the star's career. The actor's personal life also evolved. In 2002, he began dating Callista Flockhart, still during his long divorce proceedings with Melissa. Their relationship began after they met at the 59th Golden Globe Awards in 2002. After 8 years of relationship, Ford proposed to his beloved, and unusually, Callista found the diamond engagement ring in a bag of croissants. Despite the large age difference, Flockhart is 22 years younger than Ford, the actress considers him the most passionate of all her suitors. The actors are also raising a boy named Liam, whom Callista adopted even before her relationship with Ford. The actor is very proud of her and considers her the best mother in the world. Ford and Flockhart were married in New Mexico, where Ford starred in Cowboys and Aliens. The wedding took place at the governor's mansion in Santa Fe. The couple tries to avoid the paparazzi and behaves rather privately. It is known that his wife shares Ford's passion for flying, and this has been a huge factor in the closeness between them. Callista loves to fly, and I'm thrilled because it's so important to me, and it's the kind of thing that's so much more fun with somebody who really enjoys it. Ford told People in 2003. On the outside, Harrison and Callista look happy. I'm in love, Ford said of Flockhart in an interview. Romantic love is one of the most exciting and fulfilling kinds of love, and I think there's a potential for it at any stage of your life. I was not surprised that I was able to fall in love, and I wasn't surprised that I did. In 2015, an unfortunate incident occurred. The World War II actor's plane crashed shortly after taking off from Santa Monica Airport. It landed on a golf course in Venice, California, and relatively successfully if you consider Ford's life-threatening injuries. The actor broke his pelvis, fractured a vertebra, and injured his head. The situation has affected the actor and made him rethink some things. I changed a lot of things in my life. My wife does not fly with me in vintage airplanes anymore. She will in others. I certainly don't want to have to recover from that kind of accident again. It was really hard on my family, and it was hard on me. So, in the words of the great philosopher Jimmy Buffett, shit happens. The investigation of that accident absolved them of any blame. It was a faulty carburetor that was nearly impossible to detect during routine maintenance. He still has no memory of the minutes leading up to the crash landing, but the evidence confirms that he took all reasonable steps to increase his chances and reduce the negative consequences. It was not Ford's first or last aviation misadventure.
You son of a bitch.
Before that, he had the misfortune to land on a nearby taxiway instead of the John Wayne Airport runway. Afterwards, the media discussed his mistake and accused him of almost hitting a Boeing 737. "It's thoroughly embarrassing. I didn't fly over him and it wasn't a near miss," Harrison said, admitting his guilt. "Officially, I admitted to two of the common mental processes that can lead a pilot to making a mistake: distraction and fixation." He says that he'd come from visiting his 101-year-old aunt who'd just been put into hospice care. "So I was thinking about a couple of other things, and it was a good landing in the wrong place." But the incidents didn't stop there. A similar incident occurred in 2017 when he flew over an airliner carrying 110 passengers and 6 crew members while piloting a private jet at a California airport. And later, in 2020, Harrison's plane accidentally crossed the runway as another aircraft was landing. The distance between them was only about half a mile at the time. And even 20 years of experience isn't always a guarantee, but hasn't it happened to everyone? The actor started taking flying lessons on the advice of his friend George Lucas. It's a way to get there, and it's a discipline. And when I came to aviation, it's because I hadn't learned anything in a while, and I really wanted to see whether I could do that. I was really young. I was 52, admitted the actor. According to him, he was so fascinated by the sky that Harrison took the controls for the first time before he had finished his studies and had not got his license. It's a combination of freedom and responsibility. You put in the responsibility to know what you're doing, and then you gain this freedom. But you're constantly attending to the responsibility because you're enjoying the freedom. And it continues to give back because you continue to learn. And it keeps me from, laying under a stone that says, actor. For me, I just want another bit of life. Blade Runner 2049 was released.
We're making another Blade Runner, and we want you to be in it. What was your reaction?
So what?
This time, Denis Villeneuve took the director's chair, although Ridley Scott still had an influence on the sequel. After all, Ridley Scott was immersed in the creation of the 6th film about Alien, and he did not care. But he retained his position as executive producer and helped write the screenplay for the film. Villeneuve felt a great sense of responsibility for the new film. The director shared with the New York Times. "It was the first time, and honestly the only time, I would do that, to step out in somebody else's shoes. To take someone's dream and try to make it my own. It was by far the most difficult thing I've ever done. I felt his presence all the time. In conditions. I sent him this script and he said, 'Wow, this is the best thing I've ever read.' So it's very relevant to what happened in the first one," Scott said. "It was not without excesses on the set. So during one of the episodes, there was an incident. I punched Ryan Gosling in the face," Ford admitted. "Ryan Gosling's face was where it should not have been. I threw about 100 punches in the shooting of it, and I only hit him once."
Story is that I missed him 99 times.
The actor was sure that 90% of what happened was Gosling's fault. At least, that's what he said in his interview. Friends and acquaintances of Ford and Scott claim that they still disagree about the nature of Rick Deckard. "It comes up somewhere around the end of the second drink. It always comes up somehow," the actor states. Villeneuve confirms. Harrison and Ridley are still arguing about this. I witnessed some discussion at dinner we had in Budapest, and it was fantastic. The idea that you're unsure if you were designed or you are a real subject, a real human being. That tension is interesting. Han Solo returned to the big screen in 2014.
We're home.
In the 7th episode of Star Wars, the action takes place 30 years after the finale of the story we know. Ford admitted that he was not expecting a call from George Lucas. "I was surprised," he concedes, and that's when his dream came true. In the story, his character was killed.
I argued for 30 years for this to happen.
Right.
And finally, I I wore him down.
I guess you did. So you won't be in any of the other movies, or Han Solo won't be in any of the other movies?
Who said that?
However, in the next part, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, he did return to filming, but only as a memory. When asked why he agreed to participate despite the fact that his character was dead, he said, "When JJ asked me to do it, I said, 'Are you kidding? I'm dead.' And he said, 'Sorta dead. You can do this.' He hadn't written anything at the time, but he said, 'This is going to be great. If JJ asks you to do something, you'd probably do it too.' He's a very persuasive guy." Ford is certain that his participation in Star Wars is over, at least for now. "I'm finished with Star Wars if Star Wars is finished with me," he says in an interview with GQ magazine. "At this point, I'd rather do something else just because it's more interesting to do something new." And he's trying. In 2020, the actor appeared in Chris Sanders' adventure film The Call of the Wild, based on Jack London's novel of the same name. He got the role of John Thornton, an elderly tramp who befriended the tailed protagonist. The actor was not embarrassed to play characters of an appropriate age. "I like playing an old guy. If I wasn't having a good time, I would stop doing it," he said.
We come and go, don't we?
The dog, named Buck, was created entirely through digital technology and motion capture. The actor, whose movements and facial expressions were copied, was Terry Notary, who previously worked on the films Avatar and Planet of the Apes. "I had an emotional relationship with this consciousness that was Terry Notary, and he became the consciousness of Buck," Ford said about it. To shoot, the movie actor went to a rare step for himself. He grew a huge beard, which he did within 3.5 months. He recalled, "Then I shaved it off, and then we did some reshoots, so I had to grow it again. My wife will never forgive me for that, but it was right for the character." Good physical shape, 77-year-old Ford explained the craving for a healthy lifestyle. "I'm healthy. I enjoy being active and fit. I'm aware of keeping my old butt in shape." The movie failed at the box office and received mixed reviews. Most of the good reviews were about the acting. They disapproved of the creation of an animated main character, the authenticity of the script, and the logic of some scenes. A new step in the last decades of his career was Harrison's involvement in TV series. He admitted that after the long isolation and lack of work due to COVID-19, he wanted to catch up. He wanted it so much that he agreed to do the next 2 projects without even reading the scripts. In 2022, Taylor Sheridan's American Western TV series 1923 was released. Ford was cast in one of the lead roles, Jacob Dutton, the patriarch of the Yellowstone Ranch. Recalling his first meeting with the director, the actor said, "There was no script because he didn't want to write a script for people that are going to turn him down. But there are things in the scripts that I never would have anticipated that are emotionally consistent with things that have happened in my life. So when I was reading it, I was thinking, what the f?" As usual, when talking about his participation in the series, the actor joked in his own way.
And he used underhanded means to get you to say yes without any...
No, he poured overhand.
1923 is conceived as a spin-off of the Yellowstone series and has received generally positive reviews so far. According to Rotten Tomatoes, distinguished by the ineffable star power of Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, 1923 is another solid, if unrelentingly grim, addition to Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone universe. The series has been renewed for an originally planned 2nd season. On January 27, 2023, another series with Ford in the lead role began, a comedy project, Shrinking. This time, the actor took off his cowboy hat and put on a white coat of a psychotherapist. A key character in the show is Jimmy Laird, played by Jason Segel. The main storyline is Jimmy's growing up and going through a series of difficulties in his quest for redemption. A parallel branch develops the story of Paul, who is as emotionally unavailable, serious, and charismatic as Harrison, who plays this role. He responded to the comparison with this hero as follows. "I don't have Parkinson's like Paul or a deep knowledge of therapy, and I'm not in business with a couple of fucking maniacs. But I recognize that maybe he's like me. Or maybe he's not like me. And that's acting." Jason Segel talked to THR about working with Harrison, that Ford is a master, noting, "He said to me, I've been hired to build a house, and all I want is that when we're finished, the people who hired me are happy with the house." And even though the actor hasn't worked as a carpenter in a long time, he uses his former profession as a metaphor for his approach to his work. Preliminary reviews of the series are generally positive. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the series a rating of 3.5 out of 4 with, "It's always unclear what goes on behind the scenes, but it feels like Ford is having a great time on this show. We're sure we're having a great time watching it." The NPR article described the actor's role as follows. When you take very good comedy writing and you give it to someone as gifted with the control of his voice and his face as Ford, it comes back to you as exceptional comedy. The new Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, directed by James Mangold, is expected to be released in 2023. The fifth part is planned as the final one about Indiana, and Ford's involvement as the famous archaeologist is the last. The 80-year-old actor said that he agreed to be filmed to put an end to the story of the iconic hero. I always wanted to do it. I wanted to do the rest of the story to see the end of his career. Fans had mixed reactions to the news, mainly because of the controversial fourth part, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, released in 2008. Then the picture was criticized for everything possible, including the absurdity of the plot, the abundance of computer graphics, and for the basic lack of common sense. Thus, in the movie, Indiana broke every imaginable and unimaginable law of physics and, in some moments, of logic. The episode with the lead refrigerator stands out.
0.
But the creators promised to make conclusions and return to reality. The events will tell the story of an older hero who wants to give up the crazy adventures he has been involved in all his life. But it won't be that easy. In addition to Harrison Ford, Mads Mikkelsen, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Boyd Holbrook, and Antonio Banderas will also star in the movie. After that, Disney is reportedly planning to continue the franchise without Ford. The script was supposed to reflect the actor's age. In fact, it would be the first major studio feature-length action film starring someone in his 80s. The mistake you make in movies is when someone is of a ripe age, but the movie continues the charade that they're not that old, Mangold says. According to the director, Ford tries to make each scene as realistic as possible on set. At the same time, the actor is still trying to work out as much as possible without a doubler. He's got this great sense of how to be a hero and how to undermine the tropes of heroism at the same time. Mangold said, "It is unknown if the actor has any personal nostalgic feelings for his character. After all, he often answers formal questions about Indy with a dose of cynicism. In an interview with GQ magazine, for example, he noted that his interest in franchising was purely financial. But behind the outward pragmatism, the opposite is often the case. Denis Villeneuve, for example, recalled being genuinely surprised by Ford's enthusiasm for his work. He told me that there's something that he's still memorized and amazed by, which is the fact that if you put a few dozen people together, that at one moment in time and space there will be magic happening in front of the camera because everybody is working together. And that moment of poetry that happens is still a miracle for him. That is something that still brings joy to him." That's what he said to me. When asked directly about his acting, Ford likes to talk about problem solving and how his job is to be helpful. But when journalists point out that for his peers, their work has become something more mystical, sacred, he responds, "I do that too, but I don't talk about it." And then he explains why. "It's nobody's f***ing business."
That's me.
Yeah, that is you, yeah.
Among Harrison Ford's upcoming roles is the role of Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross in the superhero films Captain America, New World Order, and Thunderbolts. And so, the Marvel Universe got a superhero who, we're sure, still surprises us all despite his solid age. When he was asked what prompted him to sign on for such a role, Ford said, "I don't know, I can't explain myself to myself, I just work here. I thought everybody else seems to be having a great time. I like doing something different to what I've ever done and pleasing people with it, so let's try a piece of that." Challenging character, love of risk, dedication to work. These are the adjectives that come to mind when talking about Harrison Ford. But his essence is much more complex than a cocky grin and equally cocky comments. His characters have been role models for generations, and everyone has found what they are looking for in them: intelligence, sarcasm, courage, naivety, or bravery. The actor admits that his behavior depends directly on the people he interacts with, and so everyone finds something different in Ford. Despite his age and stature, Harrison Ford continues to conquer Hollywood, and he's not the only cool old man of the Dream Factory. Despite his age, another celebrity, Clint Eastwood, continues to film and act. The actor whose image has become a symbol of masculinity and inexhaustible energy. What is his uniqueness, and why do people still look up to him? Click on the icon and learn more about the secrets of success and coolness of this iconic actor. And don't forget to like our video. And that's it for today. That was Biographer with you. Bye-bye.